Happening. It's on. We're live on the air. Thank God this show's not live. Welcome to Uncarcerated. I'm Lee Scott.
I'm Kevin Scott.
And this lovely human.
My twin sister is here today.
Yeah.
This is awesome. So we have been very excited to have, I think we're trying to do this for a couple months now, probably, right? There was some almost did it, didn't happen, back and forth stuff.
People keep getting sick, COVID,
Yeah.
right? So
It's
we
very
picked Father's
rude.
Day. We picked a holiday to do this. We're like, nobody's busy, right?
Anyway, so this is Latashia Brim, one of my favorite human beings on the planet. I'll read her bio, which is lengthy and impressive, and then we'll dive into whatever conversation feels like the right conversation. And feel free to chime in. If anything is incorrect, you want to add anything, even in reading this, feel free to jump on it. Okay.
Reading these bios, AKA making me feel bad about myself. That's basically these bios are. So I'm like, God, what am I doing?
Yeah.
You are awesome.
Yeah.
Human being.
Yeah. We don't do
Superman.
shit. All right. Okay. All right. Latashia Mays Brim is a loving mother and nurturing grandmother. She was born in Jacksonville, Florida, but she spent most of her formative years right here in Gainesville. Latashia is currently the executive director of the Florida Council Incorporated, an arm of the National Council for Incarcerated and Formerly Incarcerated Women and Girls Incorporated. She is also a production assistant for Brook Brim Retreats and cultural advertising and design. She joined Community Spring with a passion for healing communities by addressing individual and community needs, preventing mass incarceration of women and girls, uniting communities with resources, and developing progressive community-led programs. Latashia also spends time working on 2 manuscripts about traumatic life experiences and the journey to healing through self-love. Latashia believes in giving back and being active within the community. Also, Latashia is one of the founding members of Torchlighters Reentry Support, offering practical and emotional resources to people coming out of incarceration here in Alachua County, Florida. She does street outreach for Grace Marketplace, which is a homeless services provider, and she is on the board of Grace Grows. Is there fucking anything else? Anyway,
Oh,
impressive sounding and
thank you.
impressive in reality.
No, it's I don't know. I've done this type of stuff my entire career. I started out, I think, at the Gainesville Housing Authority as an occupancy specialist, helping people get into housing. So that's kind of where it began. It's ironic. It started there in housing, and now it's kind of back at housing, street outreach. Yeah.
And there's so many different elements to the overall problem of social and economic and criminal justice, and you kind of have a hand in each one of those elements. Talk about why the housing element. I want to start with that. Why that's so important to just the Gainesville community, to people in general, and why that's important to you.
I feel like any issues that people are dealing with, you need a foundation. You need somewhere that's home based, that you can, first of all, housing is a human right. I don't feel like it's something that's a luxury. It's a basic necessity. At this point, at this day and age, everyone should be able to say, I have a home to go to, a roof over their head, someplace they can go decompress, someplace they can go and feel safe. It's their castle, their cave, their safe haven. That's how I feel about that. And as far as it being a place where healing begins, you can't, if you have all these additional things to worry about and you don't have a place to live, you're in a constant state of survival. You have a place that you can live, like some of the people that we've helped get housed here working for Grace Marketplace, and as well back when I was with the Gainesville Housing Authority. Once people got into a place that they could call their own, they begin to make adjustments to the way their lives were going, the things that were happening in their lives. They were able to start, kind of balancing out and creating the life that they wanted for themselves.
I know one of the things that we we've seen pretty often on at least in interviews and talking with people here, and just from our own experience and our all the work that we're kind of involved in, is that people who have seen some shit tend to be the most powerful advocates and like kind of like, you know, really the best person to be in the trenches. And obviously I know you bring a lot of that, your own lived experience, I think is like super valuable. And like I've seen you very passionately speaking about things that you've been through and like why that matters and like how that relates to like the work you're doing now. Are you, if you're up for it, just talk a little bit about like maybe some of the impacts and like maybe some of the formative things that you went through that led you to turn that into something powerful for your community.
Well, and I talk about this a lot. For years I have. I am a survivor of childhood sexual abuse and trauma. Then when I say sexual abuse and trauma, I mean extensive. Pregnant from my stepfather twice, 2 abortions of both of those pregnancies and whatnot. And the type of abuse that I suffered was not just physical, it was also mental and emotional, because we were, you know, locked in our room separate from each other, me and my siblings. He would abuse my mom severely. Sometimes we'd be like, that's not our mom, that's a clone, you know, because she was severely abused as well. We would come out of our rooms to eat, to clean up, and that was pretty much, that's pretty much it. I was told at a young age, it actually began when I was 10, with him making me exercise in front of him. And, and then it just progressed. It ended at 16 because I ran away, not because he stopped, but because I ran away. Became emancipated as an adult, and went on the independent living program, got an apartment. I always had a job. When I was 14, my first job was one of the summer programs. I worked at, I believe it was the police department, as a matter of fact, the Gainesville Police Department, as in the, they're doing the mug shots, doing that, helping with that. My second,
taking the pictures?
Yeah.
14?
At 14.
What the fuck?
It was the summer,
What?
they had those summer programs.
Okay, all right.
The second one was at the library.
And that's where you first met Kevin.
Yeah.
That's the story.
Yeah. Yeah.
The second one was at the public library.
Yeah.
As a reference page. And it was like, kind of train, people and whatnot. I was a City of Gainesville, on the City of Gainesville Youth Leadership Council. I was doing all those things, but I wasn't present because of all the things that I was experiencing at home. But being told that, I was going to do this, wasn't going to do that, I wasn't going to do this, wasn't going to do that, by him, something inside of me said, no, you're lying. I always felt like I had to externally tell myself I'm normal, because I felt abnormal and felt damaged because of the things he'd done to me. Yeah. But I don't know, just I've always had that fighting spirit, in me. When I see things that are wrong, I just can't sit back. When I see people hurting or being bullied or abused, I can't, not do something. Yeah. And maybe that's because of what happened to me. I didn't see myself as a victim per se. Then I saw myself like as a fighter, more so back then. When I think about it, yes, those things were happening, but I was fighting my way, out of that. When I see people that are vulnerable and can't advocate for themselves, I want to help. So.
Can you talk a little bit about? I had a therapist very early on, after my first or second bout with very serious trauma, and then I wound up in county jail. And she had been a therapist that had worked with me for a while. And she came to visit me, and I think she was trying to give me some hope. And she said, some people take these traumatic incidents and turn in on themselves, and other people use it as rocket fuel to help others or to help themselves. But and you can kind of go one of two ways. And it took me a while to figure some stuff out internally and externally, and eventually use that as rocket fuel, like an endless energy to help others. Can you talk about, for you and just in general, what happens? Why is it that some people have that fighting survivor spirit, and other people are, through no fault of their own, not able to overcome that? Like, what is it about you that makes you uniquely qualified to do that, to use that as rocket fuel?
When I was experiencing all of that, and when I did get out, I still had siblings in the household that I cared about and I loved, and I had to fight for them also. So I was the oldest, and I knew and I saw the things, how it was affecting them. It affected, one of my siblings the opposite of how it did me. And so I had to like be a cheerleader for that sibling, and it, tell her the opposite of what he was saying. Those are lies. I think it's I don't know. I really can't say why there's a difference there. I know that at some point the things that happened, and he said it did weigh heavy, and I did kind of feel like I can't do this and whatnot. But I think that may be just all a part of the process of healing. You go through so many different phases and stages and whatnot. I feel like everybody is a fighter. It's just a matter of the different stages that you have to go through and how long you stay in each stage.
Yeah. Does that still show up now, like the lingering effects of that? Like other days where like I've seen you be a fighter, obviously for a couple of years now, but like are there other times where it's like that the fighter part is not so much, and like it is like it's still showing up and like having like the traumatic effects, and it's difficult, and you feel like kind of curling up? Is that still?
Yeah. As a matter of fact, sometimes, like you said, you've seen that fighter, even through like those times. Sometimes the harder I fight, it's because it's way much heavier, during that time. So I'm fighting harder, and I find that helping others helps me too, to I don't know, just to stay out of that mode. I mean, there are other people that are experiencing things that are far greater. To me, I know they say that there's no one thing greater than another, but when I see somebody else suffering, or see somebody else, going through something, and I see like something inside of them, because I see something inside of everybody. I see there's something there that I don't want them to give up on, or that I feel like please don't give up. It takes me outside of what I'm, whatever it is that's going on with me. It's like, there's this beautiful human being that doesn't see themselves the way I see them,
Yeah. Wow, I can really relate to that. Mm-hmm. And when I first started getting involved in social justice and social work and helping others as a career, I had just assumed that everybody in that field felt that way, that everybody had that passion of like, I'm never, right, yeah. That I'm never, like, there's never a time when I'm talking to someone where I'm like, yep, that's it. That's just going to be their life, right? Like, I always think plant seeds, right? Like, I always have, and maybe I'm an eternal optimist, maybe I'm naive, but like, there are people who don't feel that way, who either they never felt that way and they just got into that job because it was available, or they're burnt out. But like, I never give up. And so why is it that you can see that with all of the darkness that you've seen and really seeing people at their worst and their most abusive? How is it that you keep that light on? I'm getting ethereal quick, going deep quick, man.
Listen, when you said that you just never imagined that there were people that didn't feel that way. I remember when I came into Community Spring, getting deep into social justice work and whatnot. I felt that. I was like, everybody feels this way. Everybody that I meet, they have to feel this way, that passion, that drive. And then when I realized, no, not everybody does, I felt crushed. Like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Like, why are you here?
That hurts my feelings.
Yeah, like, why are you here? But
Some people feel very much not like that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's a spectrum. Some
Passionately,
people feel the opposite.
passionately
right?
the other
Yeah.
side. Yeah, yeah.
I feel like people like us are here to balance that out, and to bring, perspective, or maybe shed light, on those people that don't feel that way, to kind of open their eyes, to inspire them to feel that way and whatnot. I don't know. When I look at a person, I just see good in everybody. My mom just said the other day, she was like, we were talking about a situation, and she was like, well, Tasha, you just don't see it. You just don't want to. You don't want to see it because you don't want to feel like that's what, is happening, or that's, how a person is, or what.
What humanity is.
Right. I think it would be devastating, if I gave up and began to feel like, oh, that's just going to be their life. I feel, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like I don't know, doing an injustice to, myself, to my kids, my grandkids,
I always think, why not? It's not hurting me just to think,
Right.
like my dad still puts up the idea that there's Santa Claus, refuses to say that he got us gifts. It's Santa, and he just, and I'm like, yeah, it's not killing him. Why not go ahead and say it's Santa Claus, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's okay to believe in stuff,
Why
even
not?
if you have evidence that maybe it's the other
Yeah.
thing. It's okay
Yeah.
to keep, it doesn't hurt.
Right.
So,
And there's always a chance that, somebody's going to be inspired. There's always a chance that things are going to turn around and change. You know what I mean? That's how I feel. If enough of us feel like and work towards, a specific goal, we can do it. Things are going to be okay.
I'm sure, like, we've all seen probably numerous examples of like somebody that like this is a fucking lost cause. This person's never gonna get it. This person like is like beyond helping, or like what society might look at this person as like, oh, they're like totally, they've done too many drugs, or they've been in this life for so long, there's no way they're ever gonna come out of it. And then to see that person really turn their life around and be like, oh shit, like anyone is valuable, is worth investing in, is worth spending the time to get to know. Like there's no one that's like so far fucking gone that it's like, just, oh fuck it, like just let them die.
Yeah, and then who are we to decide, that someone shouldn't have, a chance? Who are we to decide that there's no hope for somebody? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Who are we?
I know it comes up oftentimes in like this is like in recovery spaces, and just like in even like in like therapeutic spaces. I've heard like the value of doing service and how important that is, like just for your own life. It can like turn your own trauma into something powerful. When I'm feeling depleted, if I'm feeling a little discouraged or disheartened, that's when I need to really pour myself into doing service. People that are like in recovery, oftentimes, like that's a huge part of one of the pillars of recovery is like do service, give back, be of availability to other people who are in that space. Have you always felt like wanting to be involved in service? Did that develop later in your life, or is that like something you've always had, like for like, I've only known you in that space. I've only known you.
That's always been who I am. What I, it's a part of me. I like in my regular everyday life, it's what I'm doing. In my everyday life, it's what I'm doing. Some perspective on that is like with this, even with the stuff like that my stepfather did. My mind looked at, okay, what happened to him? To turn him into, this person, to make him do this. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to turn him into this person, to make him do what he did and whatnot. And found out later, some things that had happened to him. And then there were other things involved, substance and all that. I had made up in my mind that I would never ever forgive him, but I did. We don't have like a relationship or anything. I don't talk to him. I don't even see him or anything. But I don't hate him. He has, that's his, that's his life.
Compassion, perspective.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that, I don't know. I think that he may have changed just because I do have siblings that are his kids, as well. But just hearing stories, from them about, interactions with their dad and whatnot. But no, it was time I had to take responsibility for my life, at that point, and understand the trauma so that I could heal, and so that's, yeah, that's how I look at things when people, when you see a person, I look at everybody and it's like, okay, what are their experiences? You know, people have different experiences that, lead them in different directions based on a number of things, how they view certain things, how they view themselves, how they view others, what their experiences with others have been. So, you can't just throw people away. Being there for someone may be something that, helps them to see, a different side of themselves or have a different understanding. I love talking with people. I love learning from people and I don't know, just different experiences with people because then something someone else is going through may help me too, yeah.
If you are tuning in for the first time, this is Uncarcerated. We're talking with Latashia Brown, who is a good friend of ours and does a ton of great work in the community. Like, rate, subscribe, please leave a comment. So the show is Uncarcerated. We obviously talked about criminal justice and people's experience within that. So I want to pivot over to that.
Oh,
and then
yeah,
I do want to get back into hard pivot. I do want to get back into some of the housing stuff, but when you talk about always having that sense of service and that you don't describe it as something you do, but who you are. What has made you feel passionate about the criminal justice side of it? Because that puts people get marginalized
Right.
for so many. Some people are born marginalized because of the colonialist, racist stuff that we
Yeah.
have going on in the United States, and then you add another mark with having gone to prison, jail, probation, having that red F next to your name. Can you talk about why that's something that you are passionate about and maybe your personal experiences with that?
Yeah, so like I'm gonna go, kind of way back and in the formative, years, but I remember my experience and of like incarceration was like normalized for our communities. I had a cousin that was always going, to jail for just like the littlest things that seemed really stupid, but it was like it was expected almost. So like when things like that happened in our communities, it was like no big deal. When you fast forward to all of us being adults and even with our parents, it was like, well, my mom had never, gone to jail or anything. But and my stepfather, I think he went to jail a few times and whatnot, but it was like normal. Like
Right.
that type of stuff was just normal to see in our communities. My father was killed when I was 3 years old. And that was normal, for stuff like that to happen in our communities and people to go to jail. Fast forward to us becoming adults and you think about, starting families, things like that. You're starting a family without being able to get secure employment because of something that's on your record. So then you have to go to public housing or Section 8. You know what I'm saying? You have to do that or try to do that in order to be able to afford a place to live because the job that you have doesn't, pay you enough. Like it's a cycle. It creates a really bad cycle. My own experience with it, I think the first time was like a domestic issue, and they came and they took both me and my husband at the time to jail. Even though neither of us were like pressing charges, it wasn't even anything really big, but it was just like the normal.
It's like automatic.
Yeah, it was just automatic. The next time, what was it? Court fee. I still owed $1. I kid you not. I owed $1 and they came and knocked on my door at 4 o'clock in the morning. And I'm like,
That's $1
It's like,
police.
you know,
Yeah.
I'm mad when I hear it, but also not surprised at all. You
Yeah.
know?
The dollar cops are here.
right. And the officer even knew it was ridiculous. He was like, look, I know it's stupid, but they issued a warrant. He's like, just turn yourself in and you'll be out at this time or whatever.
Don't you
whatnot.
almost hate it though when they give you the like, I don't want to do this, and I'm like,
Yeah.
motherfucker, you're doing it
You're
anyway.
doing it.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, don't
You
offer
didn't act
that.
like you didn't
Yeah,
see
yeah,
me.
yeah.
you
You're
know?
still doing it.
Just sit on that part. Yeah,
You know.
don't share that.
So that was the next time, and then another time, I think, what was it? I missed a court appearance, and there was a warrant. I actually, what I did was, it was scheduled. The time changed. It was scheduled in the morning, and then it was rescheduled, I think, for the afternoon or something, or vice versa. But I missed it, and I was trying to contact the judge. Impossible. I wrote a letter and all that stuff, and so they issued a warrant. I think 2 officers came to the house the first time, and then the next time it was like 4. It just escalated to like 8 officers being there to pick me up for a warrant for a traffic
Well,
violation.
you're a dangerous human being.
So then, but what it landed me with the felony was, I had a friend that lost her house, and in foreclosure, and she was trying to actually get her house back. She was fighting to do that. I was on Section 8, and I let her move in. I put her on the lease. I put her on the voucher and whatnot. My worker knew that she was there. My worker retired. I was working 3 jobs at the time. So I was paying pretty much full rent. And she retired. Somebody else picked it up. They didn't take like the check stubs. It was just like paperwork stuff. And so they ended up sending the feds to my house saying I was committing welfare fraud because I hadn't reported her income. Because she was like throwing newspapers to the Gainesville Sun. And I report that. Like, I was like, okay, well, she's saving to do something, So it was temporary that she was going to be there. But, it is what it is. And so I was like on probation and whatnot. And I violated that probation with the traffic violation and was forced to either go to jail for 5 years or plead guilty to the felony. So I had to plead guilty to the felony. And I had kids. I can go to jail for 5 years. So that's how I ended up with the felony, and I thought it was just really ridiculous.
So you let a friend stay with you,
Mm-hmm.
and then got a traffic violation, and it led to incarceration. And I know, like, the average viewer watching this or listening to this on the podcast is going, "That's crazy." And yet, because we work in this world, it's not crazy.
It's not.
It happens over. I mean, I tell people all the time. My friends were like, "What was it like in there?" And I was like, 2/3 of the people that are there don't belong there.
Are fine.
That right? So
Yeah.
it's just like
Totally
us,
fine.
right?
Yeah.
And like,
Yeah.
there's mental health and there's addiction. It's like any cross section of society, but you also have artists and
Yeah.
talented people, and
Yeah.
like they do not deserve to be in a cage.
Mm-hmm.
I want to hear though your perspective on the political side of this, if you don't mind, because what we've done in this country with vilifying people that need assistance to the point of criminalizing poverty, especially for Black women.
$1.
Like there's been whole campaigns. If you go look at the Reagan campaign, and Lee Atwater on his deathbed admitted that they were vilifying people to scare people into voting for them.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about the political part of this and the social ramifications of vilifying and criminalizing poverty, and then the personal side of it as well?
Yeah, well, I feel like, and I'm gonna go back to like our communities. There's always a competition to see who's better than the next person. And if you have a criminal record, that automatically knocks you on a lower scale. All of this, I feel like the way society is shaped, the justice system has kind of set it up that way. Government has set it up in a way that people are pushed and into marginalization based on things like having a criminal record. They what do you call it? Monetized prisons
Mhm.
and
Yep.
whatnot.
Yeah, yeah. It's a
Um,
business.
yeah, it's a business, so they're trying to keep people cycled in and whatnot, and communities are helping them do that in a way by uh, I don't know, keeping people that do have a criminal record from securing employment, from obtaining housing and whatnot. If you can't, if you're not able to secure employment, what are you going to do? People are going to try to take care of their families.
Right.
You know, they're going to try to take care of their families. So they're going to do what they got to do to take care of their families. It's easier and it's better for communities to be more inclusive, and it's more beneficial for communities to be more inclusive of people that have a criminal background. Uh, Companies being more inclusive of people that have a criminal background. That way, they can gain employment, begin to contribute to society in a way that's going to be beneficial for everyone, as opposed to marginalizing them, because then that creates fear amongst people, because you're wondering, okay, they're criminal, they don't have a job, are they going to break into my house, things like that. Yeah.
Yeah, the psychology of criminalizing poverty is one thing that we don't discuss enough. But I mean, it's not only hard living in poverty, it's emotionally taxing.
It's emotionally taxing. Yeah,
it's
it
just
is.
constant stress of like not knowing where your next bill is going to come from,
Mhm.
feeling bad about yourself because you don't have the car, you don't
Yeah.
have the home that
Yeah.
somebody else has, and
Yeah.
that's our whole entire society is set up systematically that way.
I was ashamed. For a long time, nobody knew I had a felony. And I was like so ashamed of it. It made me feel as though, and this is just based on the experiences, that I had. It made me in the types of, jobs that I was used to having, um, the things I was used to being able to do out in the community and whatnot. It made me feel like I had been placed on a bottom shelf if we were books. Like I'm looking at these books, like we were books. I had been placed on a bottom shelf in the back of the library where nobody goes, like the dark.
Out of circulation.
Yeah, and that's the way society made me feel. Is like, I didn't matter. And that's the way I had seen prior to me having a felony. That's the way society treated people when you end up with a criminal record and whatnot. And the government pushes that. You know what I'm saying? They push that. When a person has a felony, you can't trust them. Or when a person has a criminal record or has been to prison, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Or has been to jail, they can't be trusted. They're a criminal for life.
Yeah.
And that's what has been programmed into society. People that are federal agents can't associate with someone that has a criminal record, especially a felony. It's ridiculous. It's insane. It's like it's telling people that they are on a pedestal, and if you make a mistake and you end up, in prison, it's not necessarily that you pay for your mistake, because you're going to live with that for the rest of your life. You're going to be punished for it for the rest of your life. When you do get out, how? Not being able to secure, adequate employment, not being able to secure adequate housing, being ostracized by society, being seen as less than, or being othered.
Yep.
You're not viewed as and things. It seems like things might be trying to shift, but with a lot of work that's being put in.
Thanks to Uncarcerated. Make sure you tune in. And no, I'm just kidding.
You're welcome.
With a lot of work that's being put in, but the type of person I am, it's like, why do we have to do all this? As human beings, we know what's right.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
We know what's right. And but for the sake of fitting into high society, whichever aspect of high society is for each individual community, whichever level that is or aspect that is for each different community. People go along with the masses, knowing that it's not right.
And I think that the conversation has changed because there are so many people now, loved ones, family members, who either have been or have been affected by it and had a loved one affected by it. But, and so I agree with you. And there's a bunch of amazing people doing the work. And that's the whole point of us doing this show, is we want to shift the narrative.
Yeah.
You know, no matter how small or big this gets, just having that conversation with people and having people be involved with this conversation, I think can shift the narrative. But it's also we're fighting against like every single show on television, you know, SWAT, FBI, like Law and Order, like the programming is there that it's us versus them.
And that's, and it should not, and it should not be that. It absolutely should not be that. I feel like with the, you know, the justice system there, the government has programmed into, you know, like law enforcement, that they are superior to everybody else.
They don't make mistakes.
Right.
They're great.
Yeah.
It's working perfectly.
Good guys versus bad guys.
Yeah.
And I feel like because of what you've been through in your life, and then your impact with the justice system which was so small that you could see how quickly it just kept like fucking stacking up and snowballing.
It escalates,
Like, so you can, I mean, your story is a perfect illustration of like one interaction can lead to 1,000 interactions. And once they get you once, it's so hard to get out of it.
Yeah.
And I think given, you know, you helped to start the reentry support thing here. Now your work with doing street outreach for Grace. I think that you probably more than most people have connected many dots and are really zoomed out to the right level, seeing everything. Just like from your own experience, from your own wisdom, what do you think should be different or could be different? Like what is missing for people that like someone does have that first interaction with the justice system, someone is struggling with because of like can't find a job, can't find a house. Like what do you wish was in place that does not exist now? How could it be better?
I feel like, okay, somebody's first interaction with the justice system. Okay, so this to me, if there's an interaction, that's where you begin connecting resources. It should happen before, you know. We shouldn't have to start, you know, when a person becomes justice system impacted. But when you have that first interaction, okay, what's happening with this person? It shouldn't be an automatic, you know, in situations that are not like major situations, like, you know, you murder somebody in cold blood. Even then, that person needs help. You know, find out what's going on. Get them mental health. That's something that's missing.
So you're saying that in a perfect world, we would not get to the arrest, right? But and we would fund social networks and have safety nets. But let's say we've gotten to the place where there was an arrest, or someone has interaction with the court system, that automatically we have well-funded diversions.
Right,
people,
exactly.
Whether it's mental health or healthcare or some sort of poverty assistance. Okay.
It should be that, not like this consistent recycling of people, you know, going back and forth into prison because they're not getting the help that they need.
Are you saying a cage is not the answer for everyone?
Right. No, it's not. As a matter of fact, it's the opposite. You know, it's like it's creating more, you know, issues. People aren't made to live in cages. You know what I'm saying? We're not meant to live in cages. It's just not, it's not normal.
That capture, harm, release. Capture, harm, release.
Yes.
That's like so just that's how we do business. And like people are just like completely not looking at the harm part. Like it's harming someone to put them in the cage. You're fucking yourself by doing that.
Yeah, and then the whole culture, and I'm gonna call it culture, the whole prison culture, the whole DOC culture, where there's like gangs and, you know, people go in and you gotta fight for your life, you know, all that stuff and whatnot. Right. And then you got correctional officers that are, you know, just as bad as how they're claiming other people that are, you know, incarcerated are. you're bullying people, you're torturing people, you're mistreating people,
Wagering on them fighting.
right? Things like that. My stepdaughter worked as a correctional officer for a period of time in a men's prison and in a women's prison, and she stopped. She quit PTSD.
Yeah.
Like she's like, I can't do what they want me to do. She won't say, you know what I'm saying, what it is.
Yeah.
You know, she doesn't even talk about it anymore.
You mentioned PTSD. I want to follow that thread for a second because I want to go back to what you were talking about with this idea that in America, you cannot make one mistake. After you've made that one mistake, you definitely can't make another one. On probation, in a glass fishbowl, a community watching, police watching, judges, attorneys. That fear of having to walk a tightrope is so PTSD inducing. And while we're like shifting the narrative of normalizing prison and stuff, I want to shift the narrative of people figuring it out on the first try. You know, like we need to stop acting like this idea that like, oh, rags to riches, you know, you made a mistake, you figured it out, but if you fuck up again, you know, like we've given up. Like sometimes it takes 3, 4, 5, depending on your level of trauma and what you're exposed to and how vulnerable you are. So can we talk a little bit about like that tightrope mentality, like having to be perfect?
You don't know, you're perfect.
That's true. That's why I asked. Yeah.
Listen,
It's a trick question.
listen. You can't be perfect. There is no perfection in it because people we're here to fuck up. You know what I'm saying? And learn from our mistakes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's what we're here to do. When you're on probation and whatnot, and you got a person over here that is hoping that you mess up, actually trying to catch you messing up and trying to make you mess up. Sometimes in some cases, trying to make you mess up, putting you in situations or having expectations of you that you know you can't possibly meet. That's not helping. If you're going to have all these different eyes and whatnot, why not have these eyes have some hands attached and be helping with resources? You know what I'm saying, along the way. If you're going to be monitoring this person, make sure, okay, there are resources that you're handing out, not you trying to catch them messing up. Try to help them. You get what I'm saying?
Right. Like if there's funding in handcuffs and locked doors, there can be funding in mental health services.
Exactly.
Right. Absolutely.
Exactly. Yeah.
I've seen you like, so I've known Tasha for 2.5 years, although it feels like longer.
It feels like longer, doesn't it?
Yeah, because it's been a pretty,
We're twins.
it's been a robust 2.5 years. But so, I mean, I've seen you like kind of all the things you're bringing forth here in this conversation, like the compassion, the warmth, the perspective for people, the belief in people, seeing like what's really needed. Like I feel like you really have connected the dots in like so many beautiful ways. Like just to like maybe get into some like happier or more like current times, like you want to talk about some of the stuff that you've been involved with that's like community led, community driven, some of the spaces that you are interjecting all that compassion and warmth now?
Yeah. So well, with Grace Grows, I was the project coordinator for the community food project Southeast Gainesville. And that project, what we did is we wanted to find out from the community exactly what issues they're experiencing. And that's been done before. We wanted to do it in a way that was inclusive, you know, that was community driven and community led, as opposed to someone coming from the outside and saying, what's your problem? Okay, well, here's your solution. We feel like this is a solution. Or what's your problem? Okay, thanks for letting us know. We're out, you know, and not
so like
really
academia goes into these neighborhoods and says, hey, let us ask you a bunch of questions, and then they never come back because they graduate. And
they graduate and they move on. So they benefited from, you know, from this whatever project it was or whatever surveying they did. They benefited from it, but the community didn't.
Right.
So we didn't want to do it in that way. So what we did was the project advisors for the Southeast Gainesville Community Food Project were people that were stakeholders within that community and community leaders that worked in that community, that had family in that community, but they also knew other people and had other connections in the community. The project advisors helped us get community advisors, and that was by nominations. They would nominate different people they knew within the community that were embedded in the community with ties and deeper connections in the community. So it's like roots, digging down and deep into the community. So we hired the community advisors and paid them a stipend to assist in creating a survey, because who better than people that have that lived experience, that are actually there living this, doing this every day, networking throughout their communities, right? Who better to know what questions to ask? We had created a survey already, and they were like, they didn't like that. So I was like, well, hey, why don't you guys do it? Who better than the community members? Yeah. So they created this, right?
Yeah.
They were
that's really peeling back the onion. You all didn't even start with the answers. You started with getting the questions.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Some people aren't that thoughtful. It's amazing.
They created a survey. We went out into the community, and it took some time. I'm talking, the survey was brilliant that they created. I mean, like, I had to applaud them. I was so happy, and so we all were just so excited about it. They actually helped us. We did surveying online via Zoom. We did it via phone. We did boots on the ground. I think email also, I believe. So without those surveys, we gathered information, and actually we're still, kind of going through that information that that was gathered, so that we can assist in implementing, hopefully, some of the ideas that the community had about solutions to the issue of the food, it being a food desert in Southeast Gainesville. We also, in that project, gathered information about the different assets within the community, and not just projects or programs and whatnot within the community, but people. That guy that goes fishing and comes back and hands out fish to people all throughout the neighborhood, or that farmer that has some extra potatoes or corn or whatever, and he comes and hands that out in the community. Those are assets within the community. That neighbor that takes the other neighbor to the store, that one lady that cooks a big meal and gives everybody in the community a plate, asset to the community. So we looked at that also and did some asset mapping. Why? Because we wanted to also utilize some of the resources that we have as Grace Grows to connect those assets to probably money that can help them, or resources that can help them expand on whatever it is they're doing.
So rather than the answer to a food desert being build a bunch of restaurants, it's have the assets support the assets within the community that's already there.
That was one. Yeah, that was one of the solutions. And then there are various other solutions that the community members did come up with. We're trying to right now to find the ones that that we can help implement, and that the majority wanted to see happen in their communities and whatnot. So there's a next step to the community food project, but that's that one. That was a long.
Great. It's so good.
It's so
idea,
thorough.
Yeah,
that's why we want you to come be a part of the show on a regular basis, because you can go so many. I mean, criminal justice, housing, food deserts, like
fucking octopus over here.
Right? Yeah, that's right.
You said it about a couple different things, like the power of people with lived experience, like being the driving force, and why are they not the center of so many conversations? Like how has that been missed for so long? I mean, like, I went to school, I've got the answers. It seems to be like what comes forward is like a policymaker in an office somewhere who's never actually experienced the things that they're deciding about are the ones who are like calling the shots. It seems so crazy. Like what you're describing sounds revolutionary yet super fucking obvious.
Right.
Obvious. Like of course.
I've been in, I mean, not just with academia, but even within activists themselves often. I have been in rooms where I'm like, I'm the only one in here with lived experience. And I get it that you care, but you all don't have the right answers and you're not even asking the right questions.
Right. Let me tell you, before when I first came back to Gainesville, I had just started getting out into the community. I couldn't find a job or anything, but I needed to I needed to be doing something. So I went to this thing they had at the Hippodrome. It was about, it was something to do with mental health surrounding people that had been, like sexually abused, Black women that had been sexually abused as kids. So I go there and they're like a bunch of white people, a couple of Black ladies, but they're all mental health professionals. And I felt like I was like the only one in there that was not. And so they were all getting up there talking about, different people that they knew or their patients and things like that. And, I think I stood up and said something and they were just like, oh, I never said that I'm a survivor, but they didn't listen either way.
You didn't have the
Because
right
you didn't have
letters
the
after your
credential.
name?
Right.
Right.
Hell,
Yeah.
yeah.
And it was coming from, us, but they didn't, it was just like, oh, thank you. We have so and so and so and so,
Dr. Blah blah.
Yeah,
Dr.
yeah.
Fartness.
So,
Yeah.
after experiencing that a few times, my whole thought process on things changed. It was like, no, everybody should have a seat at the table.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? How are you gonna create a solution to a problem when you're not allowing people from the different facets of the community that the problem is in come to the table? Because this situation may be affecting that person differently from this person, and you have no lived experience. So how would you know?
Yeah.
You
It's
feel
not a
what I'm saying?
monolith.
Right.
Right.
I've always said, put the shit on the table. Let's just put all the shit on the table and sort it out.
You must have eaten at Kevin's house.
That's not
I know that we could talk to you for hours. So as we start to wrap it up here, I do want to shift to the back to where we started, to housing. And can we tie that last thread into people doing the work for housing? Do you think that there is a seat at the table, and are you starting to see a seat at the table for people who have experienced either homelessness or serious poverty to be able to start making some of those decisions as it relates to housing? Like who's making the decisions on where this money is spent on building housing, placing people that are homeless? Like, are we starting to see people that have experienced poverty make these decisions? Or again, is it like, I have a master's degree?
I feel like, and this is based on some recent, things that have happened recently. I feel like there are people that have experienced homelessness that are doing the work, but the decisions, they're the people that have experienced homelessness and have come out of it are doing the legwork and whatnot, and advising on decisions that need to be made. But I feel like the decisions are still being made by people that are out of touch with what it is for real. You know what I'm saying? What's really going on, how this is happening, how it happened. I feel like we're getting close to people that have had that lived experience being able to be decision makers and decide where things should go. But we're not close enough to it. There may be a little bit, like we're advising on different things and whatnot. But as far as being able to say, no, let's find out what people think. Let's find out what people feel. Let's find out where they feel like this money should be spent, what they feel like is most necessary in order to help in homelessness.
Yeah.
I don't think that's happening enough yet. We're getting close, but I don't.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
There's
Yeah.
someone applauding outside. That was for you.
So, I mean, I agree with you. It does seem like things are like getting closer to that, just maybe not quite all the way there.
Right.
It has many spaces as we wish, or that we can see the value. I think the idea of everyone having a seat at the table makes a lot of sense. I think yours is going to be a throne at the table, probably, knowing you're going to give it to somebody else to sit at. But like, I do think that's something really good to be said about like, why is that table not perfectly round, and why are there not a zillion chairs at that table? Like we should all be contributing our experience.
We should be. We actually with Grace Girls, we created a community engagement toolkit that does just that. If you use this toolkit the right way, you're gonna have everybody at this and it can be used for anything. It can
It's
be
one of
used
the
for-
most amazing documents I've ever read in my life. It is so good.
Thank you.
Yeah, you all did so good with
It's the
that.
War and Peace of toolkits.
That it's
Yeah.
gonna no, I mean that thing is
Yeah.
gonna be used at universities and community engagements around the country. It's gonna, I think
That's what I
gonna be a
want for it,
huge
yeah.
document that people use as a toolkit to build their nonprofits
Yeah.
and build their community
Yeah.
engagement. So
Yeah.
great job on that.
Thank you.
The gold standard.
Yeah, but I mean, and I feel like it's gonna. That has been what I've felt for the longest. I remember telling a friend of mine that I've been harping that for like years. Everybody needs to be at the table. Everybody needs a seat at the table. Everybody should be able to, give input on decisions that are being made about their lives.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't want to get into the weeds too much because we don't have a ton of time, but can we talk a little bit about, you said at the very beginning how important housing is to have a home base to be able to make those decisions from. You can't get out of trauma while you're still experiencing trauma.
Exactly.
But I also have seen that like there are so many other moving parts with living your entire life as an emergency. Can you talk a little bit about like sort of like the housing first and housing only versus a holistic approach where we say housing first, but also how many other things need to go into being able to sustain housing? Is that too much, Kevin? Did you know? Too deep?
No, that's a
The face you made.
that's a juicy question.
Yeah.
I was like, fuck, that's a whole thing there.
I feel like,
That's a
I
lot.
feel like a more
Yeah.
holistic approach should be taken. Yes, housing first, but also these other things. I feel like, yes, you can put a person in there. Like, I'm gonna use myself as an example. For a while there, I was like couch surfing. Like I was paying $400 to sleep on somebody's couch for a short period of time. I had nowhere to go. You get what I'm saying? And so even sleeping on that person's couch, they said, okay, well, somebody moved out. I could move in the room. I was worried. Like, can I afford the room? You know what I'm saying? The bedroom? Can I afford to move in there? And I've had houses and have raised kids, managed households and all of that. But when I ended up, in a situation where I had nothing and nowhere to go, and then, started slowly getting things, it was terrifying.
Yeah.
So the thought of getting my own apartment was terrifying because you got to pay rent, you got lights, you got, if you want, you got phone bill, just the basic things that you're going to need. But then also you got to deal with everything else on, that you done went through while you were home. Right. The trauma of it all. My concern was, am I going to be able to, keep this job? Because some of my trauma was surrounding unemployment. What if I lose a job? What am I going to do then? So that, for a long time kept me from moving, out of that space that I did secure into something to say, okay, this is my apartment. It took a while. I had a lot of other things to deal with. So a more holistic approach, you got your place here. Now maybe somebody needs help with substance abuse. Maybe they need a little bit of therapy for that, or therapy for, other traumas and whatnot. Maybe they need an education, go to school to finish up something so that they can move forward in that way. Maybe, it's just a lot. There are a lot of different things, a lot of different components.
So you're saying housing first, but also continuum of care where people
Continuum
are
care, which is what I do now with Grace also, with Grace Marketplace also, in case care management. Once we get someone moved into a place, then if they need to be there, referred to myself and my teammate, and we go and we, kind of help them stabilize into their housing and to be able to maintain it by assisting them by connecting them to different resources that they may need, or supporting them as they get back into the community. One of the people that I worked with was like, now I'm going back, getting back out there doing what I used to do, playing the guitar, you know what I'm saying, at different functions and whatnot. That's a big deal.
Yeah.
Just getting out there. Another person needed to be set up with, with doctors and whatnot, medical care. And now they're doing that and they're able to make appointments and they're able to get the surgery and, just different things like that. So
Tasha, you're doing such good work.
I'm so glad it's you that has that job. I mean, like truly, like knowing you for what feels like an eternity, like just like the amount of like passion and fire and love that you bring to like everything I've ever seen you do. Like there's no one I could think of be better for doing that very type of work right now. Sincerely, it's fucking awesome. I'm so honored that you came on and talked to us.
Yeah.
And I think we could talk to you for like
could.
fucking
And
6-7 hours.
We would
Easily,
love for you to be a regular contributor to
Yeah,
the show.
yeah.
I would
So
love
good,
to.
so
Yes,
good.
yeah.
Mandatory rec.
Mandatory rec.
Yeah.
Yep. So
Let it rip. Okay.
before we get out of here, we do a segment at the end of the show. It's called Mandatory Rec. Give us 3 movies, TV shows, books. Give us something entertaining that you're watching, reading right now. We need good show recommendations. What are you doing for recreation?
Okay, so as far as shows, I've been watching Brene Brown.
Mhm.
And I can't remember the name of the show, but it's a show that she has on HBO. I also watched Legendary on HBO, and that's
Is that in the Marvel universe? No, that's Legend.
no, Legendary is it's like it's a ballroom. LGBT.
Oh, right, Legendary. Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
It was on FX, I think, for a while. But like it the Vogue dancing and
Mhm.
stuff. It's
Oh, the
yeah,
houses.
yeah. I heard that was
Yeah,
House
amazing.
of-
it is.
yeah,
Oh
okay.
my God,
I know
it
you're
fed
talking
my soul.
Oh shit. Okay. Okay. That's good. Okay, that's good.
Like to see, yeah,
It's
it
high
did.
praise.
When
Okay.
when my kids were younger, they have that too, that are LGBTQ and what in the community and whatnot. So all their friends would come over and hang out. So his mom,
Yeah.
and now a lot of them are like kind of famous in the
Cool.
and yeah, it's cool.
Oh
It's
shit.
cool.
Okay. That's
Yeah,
great.
they do their shows and they travel and they win awards and all that stuff. So yeah, it's cool. Okay, so what else? What else am I doing?
Legendary, Brene. Just give us one more, either a book or a TV show or a podcast.
Music.
Music, yeah,
Yeah.
music would be amazing. What are you listening to right now?
Music.
Slayer.
I listen to everything. That's the thing.
Iron Maiden.
Just fucking Norwegian
I-
black metal nonstop.
I don't know, because I listen to everything. Pop Smoke on my
Love Pop Smoke.
Pandora.
Yeah. R.I.P. Pop.
I
Tasha, thank you so
Yeah,
much.
thank you for that.
I'm sad that we're wrapping it up, but I'm
No, I enjoyed
super
this.
hopeful that you're coming back and doing
I
this
am.
again on a regular basis.
Yeah.
So,
am.
yeah.
You have
Yeah,
so much
I
to
love
say,
it.
and it's all fucking good. And it's, stunning, stunning, son of a bitch.
I love you guys.
We love you too. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, thank you
Thanks.
so much, Tasha. Latashia Brim, doing amazing work in the community on Uncarcerated. Make sure you like, rate, subscribe, leave a comment. Tell Tasha how amazing she is. Encourage her to come back and hang out with us. Otherwise, it'll just be us again, and you don't want that.
Fucking
So,
nightmare.
definitely
nightmare
download the
continues.
show, share it with your friends. We'll see you all next week.
All right. Bye.